Welcome back, everybody. Today we are doing an update on Verasity. Some recent news came out that is super bullish. We're going to dive into that, break it down, and then look at some charts and price predictions as well. So let's dive right into it. So first of all, I wanted to just quickly reiterate, a lot of you guys who follow Verasity understand this, but just how big the market is for a product like this, like that Verasity has, right? Which is ad fraud detection and elimination. So really quick, last year broke records for ad spending. We saw basically advertising digitally growing by 15.6% and reaching $705 billion. So that's $705 billion of used capital by a lot of these companies that has a large percentage of ad fraud, which is what Verasity is trying to basically eliminate and help solve. So big pain point and a huge total addressable market that Verasity can go after. The other thing that I found interesting about this tweet was that advertisers are seeing a much lower ROI on Facebook and Instagram. And a lot of this is due to the fact that a lot of these clicks are just fake. Whether it's Google, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, wherever you're running ads, a good portion of these are just fake. And so a lot of this return on investment that companies are seeing decrease is coming from ads, ad bots and scams, things like that. And when these ads move to other channels, or if they want to be enhanced on existing channels like Facebook and Instagram, Verasity is going to be a key product for them to be using as they grow their ad spend and grow their businesses. Now, going into some of these kind of big updates that I wanted to touch on, first of all, they're breaking heavily into the APAC economy. So we saw initial patent approval for the South Korean economy, which has $8.4 billion in digital advertising. 97% is going to be dominated by video programmatic advertising. So think Facebook ads, Instagram ads by 2027. So this is a huge market for them to get access to, one of the biggest in APAC. Samsung is there as well. There have been some rumors that Samsung is really heavily backing Verasity. So there's just a lot of activity going on in terms of the ability now to capture the US based on their patents, China based on their patents, and now getting into the more APAC economy with South Korea and probably more to follow, right? As one domino falls, the rest are going to be easier to follow that. So huge news there. It's great to see that the patents just keep coming in consistently for Verasity. It seems like they get approved really fast. That means that they have this process down, and what they're basically putting forth is extremely legitimate. So it's going to be really interesting to see, where this goes from here. Now, diving into just some recent updates. So the conference DMEXCO, which is one of the biggest digital marketing conferences held in Cologne, Germany, that took place just recently, about a week ago, and Verasity was one of the top projects there, and it really seems like it went really well. And what I mean by that is a lot of people were talking about Verasity throughout the conference, even more so than just digital marketing or advertising or blockchain. You're going to see people talking about Verasity and specifically VeraViews, right? This is the product that is going to be their flagship product. It's going to be the ad fraud detector and eliminator. And that's really what we're focusing on. That's what's been introduced to the Bright Cove partners. So we're going to hopefully see a lot of case studies coming out in Q4 for those partners to see how successful this was in detecting ad fraud and how much money those partners and publishers were able to save that Verasity partnered with. So it's really interesting to see just how much people were talking about VRA at this conference when it wasn't necessarily VRA's conference, right? This is a bunch of different companies that are held at this conference, right? So to see that VeraViews and Verasity are pretty much, one of the only companies individually named in these word clouds, individually named in the engagement on social, means that the networking event and presence that they presented at this conference in Cologne was top notch, and people remember it and people see the value in what they are pitching. So definitely wanted to point that out. I think it's really cool, really interesting. A lot of times it's easy to gloss over these conferences and think, okay, yep, they're just going to show up, but it's clear that they made a mark here based on some of the data, some of the early data we're seeing out of that conference and out of those social engagement. So moving on, just a couple of quick charts here. We're seeing a lot of activity, from a social aspect. This is Verasity here on the right-hand side. So we've seen 435,000 social engagements from Verasity. Obviously, nothing compared to, let's say, ApeCoin, right, or some of these other larger metaverse projects, but still hanging with a lot of the big boys here. Just interesting to see Verasity, with being such a smaller project in terms of notoriety, hanging with some of the most well-known NFT projects in terms of social activity. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is it's one of the top projects with a fully diluted market cap under 500 million, right? So if you're seeing Verasity right here, we're hanging around with some serious projects. You're talking about Engine, you're talking about Harmony One, a lot of other really cool projects that are on this list as well, and on this with Verasity. So it's really cool to see this, continually grow, to see Verasity grow and to see the network grow. Again, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with those Bright Cove partners. That's expected to come out in the next 3 months or so. We're supposed to start seeing some case studies of actual use cases for VeraViews where people are saving money, actual companies are using it. That, in my opinion, Q4 to Q1 of next year is going to be a massive catalyst for the reputation of Verasity, and for that to actually lead to additional adoption. So definitely look out for that. Now, I just want to wrap up really quickly with a little bit of outlook on the charts. I mean, this is all with a caveat, right, guys? I mean, we have so many unknowns going on. We have Russia, Ukraine, we have inflation, potential sovereign debt crisis even looming. If you want me to do a video on that, really interesting subject, but don't have time to get into it now. So there's just a lot of uncertainties, right? So anyone telling you, they know that this for sure is a double bottom, and we're for sure going back to our fib up here at the 326, at 236. There's just no way to know right now, right? So I mean, really the key, what I'm looking for in a lot of these altcoins is how well can we consolidate? And Verasity has been doing that quite well. Just kind of noting a few key areas on the chart here. First of all, obviously we're trying to hold the 003 support. And if we don't hold that, we're probably looking at 0018 as kind of the next support to fall with. That's going to be the support back from February and March of 2021. And right now we're trying to hold that resistance that we experienced back then in that February, March 2021 timeline. So we're in a kind of a precarious position, but we have the opportunity to either bounce here off of this support or just kind of continue consolidating here, which is probably the most likely outcome. But then again, we could kind of fall back down here, and that wouldn't be that surprising either. But I think in terms of, it's really easy to get caught up in a lot of Twitter hype. Verasity has an awesome community, and that plays both ways, right? You can get really excited, and then it also is obviously, hard to kind of combat that excitement with reality. I will say we have quite some time before we're going to see a return to the upside. Right now, Verasity is all about getting traction, gaining adoption, gaining a reputation in the industry to start selling to these Fortune 500 companies who have the real money. Think about that. Over $705 billion was spent on advertising, digital advertising, just in the last year or so. So that's the market that they're trying to tap into. And to get those ad dollars, they're going to need a reputation and a track record, which they're developing with those Bright Cove partners. But getting back to this, it's really hard to see Verasity making a full turnaround, obviously, until, we break this fib level. So that would be at about 2.5 cents. And then things will get really interesting once we break this neckline. So what I mean by a neckline is if you imagine, Verasity coming up, standing on top of this, playing, keeping going. And obviously if this happened, this would be amazing. But standing on top of this fib, and then we get to a point where we now have this neckline, right? And so if we go across there, that's the neckline, perspective neckline I'm talking about. Once we break that and stand on top of that, then we're talking about some real momentum to the upside. And obviously this would have already been, a ton of gain, right? I mean, already a 6-7x. But if you're talking about getting back to all-time highs, this is what's going to have to happen over a period of time. It's really hard to tell when this is going to happen, but the real supercharged kind of turnaround for Verasity is not going to be seen until we break that 2-3 cent marker. It could play all the way up to that point and still not be bullish long-term in terms of the price action. I think Verasity is extremely bullish long-term, but I'm saying in terms of the price action, we're probably not going to see an extreme turnaround in that action until we break 2 cents, and then especially that 3 cent marker, because that's going to turn into a neckline pretty quickly. And then we're going to be facing this next fib at 3.5 cents. So once we're playing within the 3 and 3.5 cent mark up here, that's when we're really talking about, okay, now we have a chance to get back to all-time highs. Now we have a chance to really go, whatever it is, 1,000x or whatever we're talking about here, 100x. That's when you're going to see the major turnaround, right? So I think be patient. If you're really confident in the project, it could be a good time to accumulate. Obviously not financial advice, but right now we're just looking to hold this level at 0.003. And if we don't, we're coming back to 0.018. But that's kind of where we are at the charts. Again, take this with a grain of salt, right? So much crazy stuff going on right now in the markets. It's impossible to really do chart analysis on altcoins right now. So that's why I think you need to take this with a grain of salt, but we're not going to see a full turnaround until we get to that 2 to 3 cent marker for Verasity, and then we can start talking about getting back to all-time highs. But that's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully that was helpful. Verasity has a ton of momentum right now. If they can get the adoption they need and get that notoriety amongst Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies leading into next bull run, we could be talking about serious growth. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. Let me know what else you want me to cover in the comments, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.